Hello there YouTube, this is seiterarch and I have a button. Yes, this is an episode about TNT, in specific, fireworks. That was a pretty lackluster launch, I have to say. Anyway, this is the start of a mini-series which I'm going to be doing, and this episode we're going to be covering the basics of TNT and some simple mortars. I noticed that there was a lot of attention, well, not so much recently, but inside Minecraft in general, on cannons. There's lots and lots and lots of footage of people using cannons, but there's not an awful lot about fireworks. There's a couple of videos out there, but there's nothing showing you how to do it. So that's my aim. I'm going to have a little bit of an experiment, and I'm going to show you the results as I go along. But first, the basics. Okay, you can't get much more basic than this. There are 3 ways to ignite TNT currently. The first is to send redstone power to a block which is directly adjacent to the TNT. It can't be diagonal, as a note. The second is to directly power the TNT with redstone. And the third is to ignite the TNT via another explosion. This could be a creeper, or generally it's a TNT. Beds exploding in the nether ore end will also work. So we shall ignite these 2 TNT. Watch when they explode. If you saw, those 2 exploded at exactly the same time, and that one exploded with a much shorter delay than the other 2. This is because ignited TNT with redstone lasts exactly 40 redstone ticks before exploding, which is 4 seconds exactly, unless you have lag, of course, that is. And ignited TNT that's ignited via an explosion lasts a random amount of game time. I believe it's between 10 and 30 ticks, but I could be mistaken. This was also a display of how explosion lines travel straight. Explosions don't go around things. As you see, the directly ignited block has destroyed all of the redstone around here, but the indirectly ignited via the block next to it has not destroyed this redstone. This is one of the reasons why it's very silly and rare in single player to ignite TNT directly. Always just shove it, even if it's, well, shoving a dirt block won't do that much good, because the dirt block will be destroyed and the explosion power will carry on. It will be reduced, but it will carry on. If you have them, obsidian is the best, because obsidian is the only completely blast-proof material, well, almost completely blast-proof material that you can obtain in single player. Bedrock is also undestroyable, but it takes 185 TNT in the same place to destroy an obsidian, so it generally does the trick. Next up, we're going to be looking at something very important. This is the effect of liquids on explosions. Here we have a testificate, the perfect mob to test with, due to its name. Villagers now, but that doesn't matter. And here we have a TNT. The testificate is fenced in, so he can't escape, because you can't jump over 1.5 block high edges. Right, so we shall fire this. The TNT ignites, and the testificate dies, and all destructible blocks inside the radius, inside the blast, are destroyed. Next, we have the same setup, except we have a water source block in front of the lava, and in front of the lava, what am I talking about? In front of the TNT. When the TNT ignites, it becomes an entity, which means that the water will flow through the block, as we shall see. That's not what I intended to do, sorry. Here we go, the water is flowing through. Oh, the testificate's escaped. As you saw, he did take damage, though, which is the important thing. But none of the blocks have been destroyed. Silly testificate. This is because when a TNT is inside water, the explosion will only harm entities and not blocks. This is the same for creepers, actually, which is a handy method of creeper avoidance. If you don't want it to do damage to your structures, it will still kill you, of course. Next we have lava, to see whether this has the same effect as water. Again, this was silly. The block ignites, and it kills the testificate and nothing else. So yes, lava has the same properties. If you notice there, the TNT caught on fire, which is quite a nice visual effect for fireworks, which we will be using later. Next up, we just want to test that dry-fired TNT doesn't destroy source blocks, because this will be important inside tubes. We have a testificate here just because we may as well. Wholesale slaughter of villagers. Not necessarily a nice concept, but so well. Right. So, as you can see, the normal blocks were destroyed. If the water and lava socks blocks were destructible, they probably would have been destroyed, but as neither of them are, we can assume that they aren't. In fact, they aren't, and it's probably not best to make that assumption. However, moving swiftly on. Next up, here we have a simple demonstration to show that water and lava don't affect the TNT's physics once it's lit. So we shall light all these three at exactly the same time and see whether they fall together. As you can see, they all fell together. I've put a bit of water at the bottom of this one just to stop it from exploding and destroying stuff. This is useful if we want to fire TNT through lava to light it, because using TNT at the bottom isn't always the easiest idea, because as you can see, I've had to cover the TNT blocks up here. TNT will be set on fire by lava within proximity if you don't put blocks surrounding it. So this is why sometimes it's easier to just fire the TNT through lava to get the effect that you get. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you is the two most basic types of Minecraft firework. These are dry launch and wet launch mortars. Now, a mortar is a type of firework where you have two explosives. One is on the ground, and this explodes first, and it fires the second, which is called the charge, up into the air, and that explodes later. So a lot of incredibly large fireworks are like this. The difference is it's not a rocket which contains a fuel to continuously propel it up. The only explosions are at the ground and in the air. There's no burning. So here we have a dry launch mortar, which is a standard mortar, but we have no water on it. So if you have any destructible blocks in the range of this explosion, they will be destroyed. I've put the charge as 9 blocks of TNT. The reason I've done this instead of just one is to show you the trajectories of them. They will fly in a direction opposite to the center of the explosion which fired them. So if we launch this, the charge ignites, explodes, and fires them all up. You saw that they exploded at slightly different times. That's one of the disadvantages of a dry launch mortar. However, it's fairly simple to set up. Next up is a wet launch mortar. Now, because blocks of TNT which are in water cannot destroy other blocks, you can't ignite the charge with the blocks on the bottom. This means that we have to set up a timer. Timers can be set up with dry launches as well, but it's generally easier not to, though it can have advantages in certain situations. So our timer is basically just a redstone repeat chain which delays the signal for launch by 40 redstone ticks, sorry. As you can see, there's 10 repeaters there, each set to 4. So 10 times 4 is 40 ticks. So these will ignite at exactly the same time as these bottom TNT will explode. This is the maximum distance that you can reach with them, though if we could somehow lower them by a block, that would be even better, because the explosion wouldn't have to travel as far. We can do that, but it's a bit more complicated. Anyway, and it's more difficult to show. I've not put a block of TNT in the center because it's very difficult to power that without putting blocks above which will block the flight of these TNTs. Anyway, fire in the hole, as they say. Now, as you can see, these have gone much farther. That's because they have the full length of fuse. They've got the full 40 tick fuse before they explode. Yeah, so those went incredibly long way. I don't know if you saw the explosions even, because they were very far off. Next up, I want to show you how you can force the direction of the TNT, because as you saw, those spread out, and sometimes we want to send more than one charge up without them spreading out. Okay, we've given this mortar a launching tube. What this is, we've raised the, well, we've not raised it, the original's over there still, of course. But we've increased the height of this by 1 so that we can easily access and prime it with these. And we've added a 5-block tube to the end. This will constrain the shot to going pretty much vertically. If we try it out, it's a wet launch like the last one with 40 ticks delay, and there we go. Pretty much all clumped in the same spot. The longer you make the tube, of course, the better the constraint is. I shall now just show you 4-block tubes and 3-block tubes for demonstration. Okay, this is a 4-block test. 4 blocks of tube, exactly the same settings otherwise. Well, as you can see, we still got very little spread with that. 4 blocks will work for most practical applications. 3 blocks coming up next. And here is the 3-block tube launch. Note that I haven't included the blocks that the TNT is behind in the number of blocks. And that had quite a lot of spread, as you saw. Not quite as much as the original launch without a tube, but still quite a lot. Next up, I'm going to show you something that I've not tried before, but I think it's the logical conclusion of this. Okay, this is the logical extension of that concept. It's a mortar. It has 5 tubes high, and we're just going to load it up now. So what the difference between this and the last one is, this is a timed dry mortar instead of, I can't remember what the last one was it? No, it was a timed wet mortar. And this will mean that the outside charges are powered 38 ticks after the bottom charges, so they will fall slightly, and then this middle charge won't be powered, and it will be blown up by the dry charge. So if we fire this, now theoretically I was hoping that the central charge would blow the others away from the centre. Unfortunately, it turns out that it doesn't actually work particularly well. Sometimes you get quite nice things, but generally there's not enough force in the centre charge to do much to the others. This is unfortunate. I won't be covering the proper flowers today then. I will cover them in my next video in this mini-series, which will be about useful fireworks for actual displays. And then the last one will probably be on constructing a couple of different displays or some more complex launchers. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please rate, comment, and if you liked me enough that you want to see more of me, subscribe. I hopefully will see you around. This is seiterarch signing out.